Thursday, June 20th, Canada's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is going to address the South Asian press. ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਆ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਰਨਲਿਸਟ ਹੈ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਹੋਸਟ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਿੰਗ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਦੇ ਓਪਨਿੰਗ ਰਿਮਾਰਕਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਆ ਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੱਧ ਚੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਲੁਕਿੰਗ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ ਟੂ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਵਿਦ Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland.
Okay, Sat Sri Akal. Very nice to be here today. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I used to be a journalist before I went into politics, so I have a special fellow feeling with everyone who is here doing the really hard and really important work of keeping Canadians, keeping people of Surrey informed about what's happening. So thank you very, very much. Merci beaucoup. Ça me fait un tellement grand plaisir de vous voir, d'être ici à Surrey. And I am really happy to be here with two incredibly important colleagues, Randeep Sarai and Parm Bains. We do a lot of work together in Ottawa, but it is more fun to be with them here in Surrey. And I think they're each going to say a few words. Do you want to go first, Randy?
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, our good friend. She's no stranger to Surrey. She's come here on all her files when she was Foreign Affairs Minister, as Finance Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, always wanting to know what's happening in Surrey and staying up to speed with the issues of the community. We're very proud to have her. She's a very easy go-to person. Whenever we have issues, we hit her up and we go meet her. And if she doesn't have time during the day, she'll actually have dinner with us to hear from us, especially those issues for Surrey. So accessibility for us is foremost, and she provides that to us, and we're very proud of that. And I think today you'll see when she answers your questions, she's very forthright, very genuine, and very sincere in getting the issues that Canadians feel and need. And I think the South Asian community is no different than any other community. The needs they have are the same as everyone else, but sometimes we need to tailor them to the language or kind of macro level, but otherwise they are the same needs, and she understands that. So thank you for being here. You're always welcome in Surrey. I also want to welcome her on behalf of Sukh Dhaliwal, my good friend and older brother, who's unfortunately still in Ottawa, so he wasn't able to make it today, but I'm sure he's here in spirit with us today, so I just wanted to mention him as well. Thank you. Parm?
Thank you, Randeep, and of course, thank you to our Deputy Prime Minister for reaching out to us and really asking us, like, we want to make sure that our message is getting out to the community. So I do want to say Sat Sri Akal, Ji Aaya Nu Sarean Nu. And most of you remember me when I used to organize these for the provincial government, and the crowd has gotten bigger and bigger. So that's really, really great to see how strong our media has become. And we have a lot of strong voices in the media, and I know so many friends here. I used to, sometimes wrestle with to try to get them out, but this is great that so many of you came, because there are a lot of important issues that we are working on and dealing with that I know the community is really anxious to hear. So I won't take too much more time, and looking forward to listening to the questions and even getting some ideas from all of you on what you're hearing from the community and what we need to work on even more. So thank you all for coming. So great to be here.
And just to add, Chrystia, this is one of the most powerful press groups you'll ever see. There's, I think, over 20 members of the press here, and their audience is very vast. It'll probably reach close to 1 million people across Canada when you add all of them, and maybe even more. But they have a very vast audience in print, radio, and television, and online. So it's a very impressive group, and I always like watching them because they all come together. They get along very well in that respects, and then they share and disseminate the information very quickly. So over to you.
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks for saying that, Randeep. And I do, just since you say that, I do just want to say to everyone here, just as journalists, I do want you to know how much I value the work you do. I think that one of the most important things in a democratic society is that people have journalists, professional journalists, who do the work, who talk to people, who know what their community needs, and who ask leaders from all areas, including politics, the important questions for your community. And so I'm just really grateful to you for your work. And I know that it's hard, and I know that now is a time when journalism is not necessarily strong in all communities in our country. So it's great to see how strong journalism is here in Surrey. It's really, really impressive. Okay. Sat Sri Akal, they taught me. And I'd like to just start off by talking a little bit about our government's priorities, what we're doing in the budget, maybe the economic environment. Would someone ask something? Maybe the economic environment. Randeep might translate some of what I say, and Randeep and Parm, we're here together because we form a government together. They're going to chip in as they wish, and then we'll answer your questions. So to start with, I just wanted to sort of give you highlights of what was our budget that we tabled in April. And actually, this is a really important week because this week, the Budget Implementation Act and the Fall Economic Statement Implementation Act both will be passed into law, hopefully even today. So it's a good time to be talking about what's in it. So I'd like to give you sort of a high-level overview of what the themes of the budget are, what we're trying to accomplish. And then talk a little bit about the economy, and then talk a little bit about a couple of other elements. So the theme of the budget is fairness for every generation. And our core idea is that we believe in Canada. We believe in the Canadian dream. We believe in how wonderful this country is. And we believe there's work that we have to do to be sure that every generation of Canadians has that Canadian dream fully available to them. So what's that work and how are we doing it? Focusing on three things. First is housing. And I know across the country it's an urgent issue. From talking to your great MPs, I know in Surrey, which is such a fast-growing community, housing is extremely urgent. And so the budget puts forward the most ambitious housing plan any federal government has put forward. It includes a plan to build nearly 4 million new homes in Canada by 2031. That includes $2 billion from the federal government for BC builds. As you know, we have a housing accelerator fund deal with the city of Surrey. That's $95 million. So, focus of the housing plan is supply, supply, supply. We know we need to get more homes built in Canada faster. And we know when we talk about fairness for every generation, one of our central concerns is to be sure our children, and I'm a mother, I'm going to be 56 in the summer. I can't quite believe that is the case. But I'm already a mother of grown children. And I see people here who are parents of children. but also some of our young people are here. And one of the animating themes in the budget is a concern that we want to be sure the younger generation, our children and our grandchildren, can enjoy the Canadian dream the way we have. And that means being sure that young Canadians can, if they go to school, they study hard, they have a job, they work hard, that they can afford to buy their own home. And so there are some measures in the budget to make that dream of home ownership accessible for young Canadians. I'm going to really highlight the first home savings account. And please, especially for your listeners and your viewers, it's a really good savings vehicle specifically for young people saving for their first home. It's tax-free in, tax-free out. And there are 750,000 Canadians who've already opened a first home savings account. Another really important measure is a longer amortization for first-time buyers of new built homes. Beginning on the 1st of August, if you are a first-time buyer and you are buying a newly built home, you can have a 30-year amortization. That is to make it more affordable for young Canadians to buy their first home. I see the younger journalists nodding their heads. Second pillar is making life more affordable. And that includes some really important measures to make it easier for Canadians to make ends meet, because we know now is a really challenging time. Something that I am really glad is in the budget is pharmacare. Specifically free diabetes medicine. And I know that here in Surrey, diabetes is a real issue and a real challenge. So I want people here to know that that medication is going to be free for people who need it. And first of all, it means people have the medicine they need, but it also means life is more affordable because they can spend the money they were spending on their medication on other things. Something else really worth mentioning is dental care. And I have, I travel across the country, and I have had so many people come up to me and say, I could not afford to go to the dentist. I went to one dental hygienist's office, and it was really sad. She said to me that she would have, prior to this program being in place, once or twice a month, people coming in when they just couldn't stand the pain anymore, and the tooth would have to be pulled. So that's not going to happen in Canada anymore. 9 million Canadians are going to be covered. 2 million seniors are already. And from June 27th, children under 18 will be covered. So again, when I was a financial journalist, we had a category of news we called News You Can Use. The first home savings account and the 30-year amortization, I think, is in that category. And I would say for dental care, it's worth people with an income of $90,000 or less to look at the website. It's very easy to sign up. See if you qualify. You probably do. And if you do, get that dental care card. It's just like regular insurance. You can just go to the dentist. One other thing that I am very proud of as a mother of three on the effort to make life more affordable is early learning and childcare. And we are investing really heavily in a national system of early learning and childcare. Already, thanks to the federal government's investments, fees in British Columbia have come down $6,600 per child, and they're going to come down further. Third pillar is investing in the economy and in economic growth. And there are some really meaningful investments here for BC. We've invested in Triumph. It's the nuclear particle accelerator at the university here in BC. That's a $400 million investment for top research. Really significant investments in biosciences, an area where BC is a leader. And again, this is a great week to be talking to you because our Budget Implementation Act and Fall Economic Statement Implementation Act are signed into law. They include a hydrogen tax credit which we estimate will be worth nearly $18 billion. And as you know, BC is a world leader and a Canadian leader in the clean hydrogen economy. So that is designed to kind of turbocharge economic development there. So that's sort of the overview I wanted to offer of our budget. I want to give you a couple of data points about progress that we're making in the economy. And I know that things are really hard for a lot of families. I'm sure that all of you hear from your listeners and your viewers real challenges with affordability. From my perspective, one of the biggest challenges, the sort of combined challenge, has been first we faced high inflation, and then we faced the high interest rates that the Bank of Canada used to fight that inflation. And when we spoke, and Parm and Randeep are right, we sometimes have supper together in my office. One of the things that we really agreed on was economic priority of the government has to be to support the Bank of Canada in the effort to bring inflation down and get interest rates down. And that's why it's been a real priority for us to have a fiscally responsible budget. Canada has the lowest debt and the lowest deficit in the G7. And that work really is starting to pay off. Earlier this month, Canada became the first country in the G7 to lower interest rates, which I think is a really, really important moment for all Canadians, whether it is for a Canadian family that has a mortgage and is concerned about that, whether it is for a small business that needs to borrow to grow. And the reason that interest rates were able to start coming down is inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range for the past 4 months. Final thing that I wanted to just touch on, and here maybe Randeep will help me providing some translation in case you have listeners or viewers or readers who prefer to get their information in Punjabi. I wanted to talk about the measure that we included in the budget to make it possible to make the necessary investments in Canada and Canadians while doing it in a fiscally responsible way so that interest rates can come down. Because as finance minister putting together the budget, here was the core challenge. We know Canada needs investments. We are a growing country and we need investments so we can grow. At the same time, we have to be fiscally responsible because I know all of you need interest rates to come down. And so the answer to that is tax fairness and increasing the inclusion rate on capital gains. And I just wanted to talk through how that works because we designed that policy very, very much with the intention that it should target people who are the most well off and that middle class people should not be targeted by it. So here are the things that we put in place to ensure that that is the case. First of all, every single Canadian every year has a $250,000 amount of capital gains they can take every single year, year after year, before the new rate kicks in. For a couple, that means $500,000 in capital gains every year before the new rate kicks in. Do you want to?
Sure. I think ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਸਮਝਾ ਦੇਣਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਗੇਨਸ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਮਿਸਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡਿੰਗ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਈਵਨ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਪਰਸੋਂ ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਾਈ ਆ ਉਹ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਲਹਾਤੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਗਲਤ ਖਬਰ ਸੀਗੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਲੋਐਸਟ ਹੈ ਈਵਨ ਆ ਨਵੇਂ ਮੈਜਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੋ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ $2.5 ਲੱਖ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਸੇਮ ਰੇਟ 'ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ 50% ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਿਰ ਟੈਕਸ ਲੱਗੂਗਾ ਉਹ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਰਹੂਗਾ। ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਕਪਲ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਜੋੜੀ ਵਾਸਤੇ 5 ਲੱਖ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਰ ਸਾਲ ਵੇਚ ਸਕਦੇ ਇੰਨਾ, ਚਾਹੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਟਾਕ ਵੇਚੋ, ਚਾਹੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਜਾਂ ਮਕਾਨ ਦਾ ਗੇਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਚੋ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਕਰੋ, ਉਹ ਉਨਾ ਹੀ ਰਹੂਗਾ। ਸਿਰਫ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਹੋਊਗਾ, ਬਾਕੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਊਗਾ। ਸੋ ਬਾਕੀ ਮੈਂ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਟ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਊਂਗਾ। You want to say more on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And did you say it in Punjabi capital gains, G?
Yes.
Okay, now I know how to say it in Punjabi.
That's giving it a lot of respect. It's kind
There
of
you go. The second measure that we put in place was for business owners, increasing the lifetime capital gains exemption. This is the amount of capital gains that you can earn in your lifetime without paying any tax on it at all. And when these measures come into force, every business owner will be able to take $1.25 million worth of capital gains before paying any capital gains at all. That is about $250,000 higher than the current rate. Again, for a couple who own a business together, it means they have a lifetime capital gains exemption of $2.5 million before paying any tax on it at all. And then on top of that, that couple every year can earn a gain of $500,000 before the new rate kicks in.
ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਗਲਤ ਫਹਿਮੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਮਾਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ, ਮੀਡੀਅਮ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਪਲੰਬਰ, ਫਰੇਮਰ, ਡਰਾਈਵਾਲ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ, ਕਿਚਨ ਕੈਬਨਿਟ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ, ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਫ ਟਾਈਮ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਂਪਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਇਨਵੈਸਟ ਕਰਦੇ, ਅੱਗੇ 1 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ 1 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਤੱਕ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਗੇਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ। ਸੋ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ, ਉਹਦਾ 1 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਨਫਾ ਨਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਦੇ ਵੇਚੋਗੇ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਟੈਕਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ। ਹੁਣ ਉਹ 1.25 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਤੱਕ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਸੋ 1.25 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ। ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਕਸਟਰਾ 2.5 ਲੱਖ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਂਪਸ਼ਨ, ਉਹ ਆਲਮੋਸਟ 1 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੇ ਟੈਕਸ ਦੇ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਦਾ ਫਰਕ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਟੈਕਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਣਾ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਐਡ ਕੀਤਾ ਆਮ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਲਈ, ਆਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਮਾਲ ਮੀਡੀਅਮ ਸਾਈਜ਼ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਉਹਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਨਫਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਈਵਨ ਦੋ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਉਹ ਹਾਇਰ ਟੈਕਸ ਰੇਟ 'ਤੇ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ, ਪਰ ਰੀਅਲਿਸਟਿਕਲੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਘੱਟ ਟੈਕਸ ਹੋਣਗੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਮਾਲ ਮੀਡੀਅਮ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ, ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਨਾਲ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਐਡ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦਾ, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਲੈਕਟ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ 2015 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਪਹਿਲੇ ਬਜਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਾਲ ਮੀਡੀਅਮ ਸਾਈਜ਼ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਦਾ 10% ਟੈਕਸ ਰੇਟ ਘਟਾਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ। ਸੋ 12% ਤੋਂ 10%, ਸੋਰੀ 11.5 ਤੋਂ 11 ਤੋਂ 10 ਤੋਂ 9 ਲੋਐਸਟ ਰੇਟ ਆ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਇਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਟੈਕਸ ਰੇਟ ਆ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਅਗੇਨ ਸਮਾਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਕਸਟਰਾ 2.5 ਲੱਖ ਟੈਕਸ ਫਰੀ ਮਿਲ ਗਿਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਫਾਇਦੇਮੰਦ ਹੈਗਾ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਆਬਵੀਅਸਲੀ ਆਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਿਮਾਈਂਡ ਕਰਦੀ, ਸਾਡਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਮਝਾਉਣਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਮ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਟਾਈਪ ਆਫ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗੇ, ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਗੁੰਜਾਇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਦਦ ਹੋਊਗੀ।
Thanks, Randeep. And then final point to make is we are creating an entirely new incentive for entrepreneurs in the capital gains taxation system, something that didn't exist previously. We're calling it the Canadian Entrepreneurs Incentive. And when that incentive is fully in place for an entrepreneur, so, and I'm raising this with you because I know Surrey is a very entrepreneurial community. There are a lot of people here who start their own business. For entrepreneurs like that, up to a profit from the sale of your business of $6.25 million, you will actually be better off under the new system than you are under the previous system, because we didn't have this Canadian Entrepreneurs Incentive, which we're putting in place.
ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਨਵਾਂ ਇਨੀ ਬਜਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਈ ਨਵਾਂ ਕਾਰੋਬਾਰ ਔਰ ਨਵਾਂ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਕਰੂਗੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਟੇਰੀਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਜੌਬਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਕਰਦਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ 2 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਤੱਕ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਗੇਨ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਂਪਟ ਹੋਊਗਾ। ਸੋ ਈਵਨ ਬਿਯੋਂਡ ਜਿਹੜਾ 1.25 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਹੈਗਾ, ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਈਵਨ ਮੋਰ ਇਨਸੈਂਟਿਵ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਟੈਕਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਣਾ ਪਊਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਗੇਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ।
And, as a result of these efforts to really target who will be paying more under the new system, and to ensure that it is really targeted on people who are doing the very, very best, our calculation is in any given year, only 0.13% of Canadians will pay more than they currently are.
ਸੋ ਇਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫੇਅਰਨੈਸ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਭਾਵ ਆ 0.13% ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਪੇ ਕਰੂਗੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਸੋਚੋਗੇ ਉਹ ਕੌਣ ਹੋਊਗੇ ਉਹ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਾਰਪੋਰੇਟ ਐਗਜ਼ੀਕਿਊਟਿਵ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਟਾਕ ਆਪਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੈਲਰੀ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਪਰਸੋਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਈਲਨ ਮਸਕ ਨੇ $40 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਬੋਨਸ ਆਪਣਾ ਲਿਆ ਉਹ 40 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ ਔਨ ਸਟਾਕ ਆਪਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਆ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਟੈਕਸ ਜੇ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਨਾਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਿਰਫ 50% ਤੇ ਟੈਕਸ ਲੱਗਣਾ ਜੇ ਉਹ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ 'ਚ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਉਹ ਆਬਵੀਅਸਲੀ ਹੁਣ US 'ਚ ਲਿਆ ਪਰ ਭਾਵ ਸੇਮ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਪ ਆਫ ਇਨਵੈਸਟਰਸ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਉਹਨੂੰ 67% ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਟੈਕਸ ਲਊਗਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੈਲਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਆ ਜੇ ਉਹ 5 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਜਾਂ 10 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਸੈਲਰੀ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਜਾਂ 2 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਉਹ ਟੈਕਸ ਨੋਰਮਲ ਰੇਟ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਸਟਾਕ ਆਪਸ਼ਨ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਲੋਅਰ ਰੇਟ ਤੇ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਵੱਧ ਟੈਕਸ ਦੇਣਾ ਪਊਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਫੇਅਰਨੈਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਵੱਧ ਦੇਣਾ ਪਊਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਆਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਆ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਪਲੰਬਰ ਇਲੈਕਟ੍ਰੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਸਾਵਮਿਲ ਵਰਕਰ ਫੈਕਟਰੀ ਵਰਕਰ ਆ ਉਹ ਸੇਮ ਰੇਟ ਤੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਨਰਸ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਟੈਕਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਤੱਕ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਲਿਆਇਆ ਜਾਊਗਾ ਹਜੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁੰਜਾਇਸ਼ ਆ ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਐਟਲੀਸਟ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਫੇਅਰਨੈਸ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਊਗੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਵੱਧ ਦੇਣਾ ਪਊਗਾ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਮ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਡੈਂਟਲ ਕੇਅਰ ਫਾਰਮਾ ਕੇਅਰ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ
See, my Punjabi is now getting so good that I want to really agree with what I think Randeep said, which is, the really important point here is a principle of tax fairness. And actually, capital gains first became taxed in Canada because of a royal commission that John Diefenbaker set up. And Kenneth Carter, who was the chair of that commission, concluded a buck is a buck is a buck. That was his core principle, that all forms of income should be taxed the same way, which seems pretty fair and seems to make sense. Under Brian Mulroney, the capital gains inclusion rate was increased to 75%. What we will do is increase it to 2/3. And it's important to be clear, as I think Randeep just explained, all of us, I hope all of you are paid for a salary for being journalists. Yeah? So all of you pay tax on 100% of your salary. A nurse pays tax on 100% of her salary. An electrician pays tax on 100% of his salary. Right now, the system in Canada is such that you only pay tax on 50% of your capital gain. So if I own some stocks and I sell them for a $2 million profit, $1 million I just immediately set aside and put in my bank. I only pay any tax at all on 1 million of those 2 million. What we're saying is Canada needs money to invest, particularly in housing, in things like affordability measures. And the fair thing to do is to say, okay, a nurse is paying tax on 100% of her salary. We're going to say on capital gains, after $250,000, after the 1.25 million lifetime capital gains exemption, 2/3 of it will be taxable. So that's sort of that's the core of the measure. And then I just want to conclude by saying to everyone here, thank you to you for your work as journalists. And through you, I want to say to your readers and watchers and listeners, thank you for the work you do for Surrey. This is one of the fastest growing, most vibrant, most entrepreneurial, most attractive communities in Canada. And what I experience every time I come here is that this is a community that embodies Canadian values. It's a community where there are very strong social networks. It's a community where people take care of their friends and their neighbors. Randeep was saying to me a little bit earlier that he said, here our gurdwaras are like our food banks. Everyone takes care of each other. And I think that it is that attitude, which I see in diverse communities from coast to coast to coast in Canada, which is what makes Canada such an amazing country. And it doesn't happen by accident. It means people thinking about their friends and neighbors, parents thinking about being sure that their children can buy a house too, children taking care of their parents and grandchildren. And I think this community really embodies that. I am very grateful and inspired.
Richmond does too.
Ah, true.
I guess now we can take.
Now we can take questions,
Do
yeah.
you have a moderator?
I think Jesse is the moderator.
We'll take questions, one question per outlet, just so we can make sure as many.
And
have a
Nav,
chance
are
to
you
ask.
going around with the?
So there's a mic on each side, so just the first person to put their hand up, and we'll rotate sides. So I saw it first.
And maybe indicate which outlet you're
Yeah,
from.
maybe
Yeah.
introduce yourselves, because I didn't memorize
Hello.
everybody's name.
Yeah, this is Gurpreet Singh Soda from Channel Punjabi, and may I ask you a question regarding from you as a Deputy Prime Minister, or?
Yes, you can ask me any question you want.
Okay, so my question is regarding Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and in this week, Canadian Parliament had paid tribute to him, but before his assassination, same Canadian government was under Indian pressure, was saying that you can't fly. He was in no-fly list, and his bank accounts were frozen. And what's behind all of a sudden change? What changed? And I want to ask similar. There are other people in the no-fly list as well, and they were warned by police that you can be next. So you guys are reviewing them? Like after their death, you're saying paying tributes, and when they are living here, and nobody's caring about them under Indian pressure.
So thank you for the question. It's a really important one. And I do want to start by saying this week was a very sad and a very solemn anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of the murder. And I was in the House of Commons. I think all three of us were. And it was important to have a moment of silence to recognize this was the murder of a Canadian in Canada on Canadian soil, and that is entirely unacceptable. So I want to start with that. Second of all, I do want to say I was very proud of the Prime Minister and of the strong position he took after the murder. It was the right thing to do, but it wasn't an easy thing to do. And the Prime Minister made absolutely correctly very clear that for the Government of Canada, for our government, all Canadians are the same, all Canadians have the same rights, and murder on Canadian soil is just not allowed, and the Government of Canada will enforce our laws and protect all Canadians regardless of who is threatening them and regardless of what the consequences might be. That was a big thing that the Prime Minister did in doing that, and I think all of us should feel safer and more secure knowing that he will stand for Canadians and against the killers of Canadians, no matter what. And I do want to also really take a moment, and I hope this won't embarrass him, but to thank Randeep and Suk specifically. Both of them raised this issue directly. They raised it directly with me. They raised it directly with the Prime Minister. We had also intelligence information, but they were very, very strong in ensuring that we understood what was happening in the community and threats that people were facing. I don't know, do you want to add anything, Randeep?
I mean, no, I mean, I think to your extended question, I think obviously I can't answer for the RCMP or our intelligence agencies, but they will review the sources of their intelligence that put people on a no-fly list or froze any account. So I'm sure they'll review that, and I'll take it up myself as well to make sure that they look into that and make sure it's appropriate intelligence that they rely on.
Randeep, can I?
You're good.
I'll just add as well. So, lucky to your original question, like beforehand, what was done. So, part of the intelligence sharing, we have agreements with countries. That is the other thing that we're reviewing right now. You probably saw the motion 112 that Sukhpaji introduced. I seconded that. What that means is, if there's information of people that are on the fly list or no-fly list, that both countries need to exchange information. And prior to the events that happened, CSIS, RCMP, on multiple occasions with the Prime Minister went to try and investigate and have them cooperate in those investigations. So that did take place. And again, like we won't know exactly what conversations were had, and those investigations are ongoing. So it did happen before, where both countries are trying to exchange information and say, okay, who's doing what. So that work was being done. Yeah.
We'll do next question.
Thank you so much, Minister. Welcome to the Surrey. My name is Parmeet and I'm from Red FM. My question to you, as you have addressed many concerns in your speech, Canadians are reporting poor mental health problem, and the major contributing factor is economic concern. 17% of Canadians are worried about their rent or mortgage, while 10% are worried about food security. Now we have a population of just 41 million. And if 10% are worried about food security, what does it signify about Canada, how we are considering ourselves as a developed country?
Yeah, so very important question. And it is a challenging time for Canada and Canadians. Let me talk about a few things that we're working on that give me real confidence that the future is brighter. First thing is where I started. I think it's really, really important that we are seeing inflation stabilizing and interest rates coming down. Was it Parmeet? Yes. You talked about people concerned about their mortgages. Inflation rates starting to come down, that is central to all of those people. So that would be number one. Number two, you spoke more broadly about housing, about people concerned with rent. And that's where our focus is build, 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 supply, 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 particularly purpose-built rental. Because, look, people in Surrey, I think, know this as well as anybody in Canada. The good thing about Canada is we are a growing country. I think that is wonderful. But we have to be sure that the housing supply is keeping up with the population. That requires significant investments. We are doing it. It takes time to build homes. I think if a lot of people here are not home builders themselves, I bet a lot of your listeners and viewers are. But we are investing at pace. And there was actually very good news in May that housing starts in May were 10% higher in Canada than housing starts in April. And actually, of the three big provinces, Ontario, Quebec, BC, housing starts in BC are actually racing ahead. We're working closely with the province, really, really important. I'll just say two more things on that sort of economic concerns issue. Affordability is a challenge in people's lives. What are we doing about it? Getting your diabetes medicine for free, that helps with affordability. Having to pay, saving $6,600 per child per year on childcare, that helps with affordability. Parm and I earlier today were at an announcement of a national school food program. That's going to cover 400,000 more kids in Canada. For a family that has 2 kids, that's going to mean a savings of $800 a year. That helps with affordability. So there are a number of programs like that in place. And then the final thing I'll say, which Parm whispered to me, and that's okay, I really agree with this, is the single most important thing to have a good life, I believe, is to have a good job and to live in a place where the economy is growing. Canada today has 1.3 million more people working than before COVID hit. I know a lot of you cover the economy, and you know a lot of people said, oh, there's going to be a recession. It's going to be really terrible. And a lot of economists feared that. But the IMF published a report last week on the Canadian economy, and they said Canada has an excellent fiscal position, and that Canada was likely to achieve a soft landing.
Just to add to that, the measures that the minister just told about, the child care cost reductions, the Canada Child Benefit, has actually, in data, women in participation in the labor workforce has increased in the record amount that Canada's ever seen. The parity between men and women has got very close, and we're achieving almost parity in that respects. Poverty rate has dropped. 2.4 million people have come out of poverty, including hundreds of thousands of young children, and we're making sure that they're safeguarded with these food programs as well. Just wanted to add that.
Next question.
So, hello, welcome to Surrey, and I actually appreciate your vision, ma'am, because you are so good in like foresightedness. I've seen the whole budget, and I've read that like your investment in AI and other things, like it shows your vision is really good. But my question is related to the previous question about housing. So I saw your video around 9 years ago. You were talking about the same concern in the parliament. And we are in the same condition right now. You told rightly that affordability is the issue. But I just want to know the reasons for this. Because if we blame COVID for this, the situation was not even better before COVID. So is it the unplanned migrations, or unplanned accommodations? Like, what is the main reason that we are facing these issues these days?
On housing in particular?
Yeah.
I'll say 2 things. First of all, first of all, I think it's important for us as Canadians to recognize that the challenges we face are common in the Western developed countries. And when I meet with finance ministers in the G7, it's really striking to me the extent to which we're all facing similar challenges. Now, I don't say that to abdicate responsibility, but I do think that recognizing that we're just in a challenging economic time in the world is important to do. Second thing I would say, though, is we need to have a different attitude towards housing in Canada. And I am really optimistic that we have turned a corner when it comes to having a different attitude towards housing. What do I mean when I say that? I think we need to do 3 things differently, and maybe return to the attitude we had in Canada right after the Second World War, which was the last time we really urgently built housing the way we need to. First thing I think we need to do is just tear down all of the obstacles, all of the red tape, all of the barriers to getting more homes built faster. That is the point of the Housing Accelerator Fund. It is to work with municipalities and provide them financial support so that they can cut through the red tape and make it possible to build more homes faster. One thing that is happening in Surrey, for example, is AI is being used in housing permits so that the permitting happens faster. That's great. We need more housing density close to transit hubs. To make that possible, one of the things we need to do is the federal government needs to build more housing infrastructure. So number one, cut through the red tape, have an attitude that says we need to get more homes built faster. I personally believe that we have turned that corner in Canada and that we now all recognize federal government, provinces, municipalities. We need to have an attitude that, disagree? I think we're doing it. I think people are now saying that we have to do it. We have to cut the red tape. We have to have more density. We have to issue permits faster. And the Housing Accelerator Fund has played a huge, huge role. So number one, cut red tape, cut barriers so there can be more supply. Number two thing we have to do differently is government needs to invest more so more housing can be built faster, and we have to do it at scale. And that's one of the things you see in the budget is truly historic, the biggest investment by the federal government in our history in housing, particularly in infrastructure to support housing, but also in low-cost concessional financing for purpose-built rental, which speaks to, I don't know where Parmeet is, but it speaks to Parmeet's question about rental affordability. And then the third thing on housing, which is different and we have to do in a way, again, I would say that we did after the Second World War, is we need to recognize the particular pain point of first-time home buyers. And we need to say as a country, it is important for young Canadians who want to study hard, who want to work hard, they have to be able to buy a home if that's what they want. And that's why we have a whole set of measures targeted at first-time home buyers.
I'll just add. So Richmond also is a Municipal Accelerator Fund recipient. So I'll just simplify a little bit to make it more specific to, say, a region. One of the big things, we know that this housing issue, I know Lucky and others, this has been going on for over 20 years. Right? The biggest issue is that all levels of government have to work together. You know, the municipality is in charge of zoning. So we, for the last many years here, have been trying to work directly with them to help them change zoning issues and make sure that their applications, when they apply for a Housing Accelerator Fund, meets the requirements that they're going to change the way they build, like the minister said. The other big piece there is, so for Richmond specifically, we also need the province on board, and the BC Builds program, the Housing Accelerator program, and then the Canada Builds program comes in to say we need different products. We can't just keep building single-family home and townhouse or a very large home or towers. We need more products. We need duplex, fourplex, sixplex. We also need micro condos. We need other things. So when someone's going through their life, the housing need needs to meet where they are in their life. Whether they're a student, we need student housing. So all of those things are now, everybody's agreeing, all levels of government, at least where the agreements are met now, that, okay, let's work on these things and let's do that. So it's not just supply. What kind of supply is it? So I think that is a very important message that people need to really understand, that we can just say, oh, we're going to build. And then it comes also down to, like the minister talked about, World War II. There were pre-made already drawings of what kind of homes can be built, that you can build quicker, they can be permitted quicker, so those kinds of things have to happen. Everything has to be more efficient. So that's the work that is being done now. And it
I just
hasn't.
wanted to add, what on top of all this, you made a good point. You said about 8 years ago, she was talking about this. She's very humble. We first did a national housing strategy right off the bat from 2016 to 2018 to find out what kind of housing Canada needs. No government did that before. The federal government always stayed out of that. Once that got implemented, the next budget started having $12 billion for affordable rental housing, added $13 billion the year after, because they became oversubscribed, which means the program's working. But those houses do take 3 to 5 years to build. Concrete high-rises in Surrey, in my riding, there's about 1,100 units being built, but they took took. They got announced under 2019, 2020, but they're now being finished in 2023, 24. So they do take a while, but the program started right from day one. It just does take a while. And then to get the provinces and the cities on board took another while. Now that all three levels are on board, you're seeing the NIMBYism being cut out, because now you don't have to go to rezoning, you don't have to go to public hearings again for areas that are already zoned, and you'll see a rapid increase, and it's happening. I just want to share that.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, Randeep. And I do also really want to emphasize the importance of the macroeconomic environment, and in particular, inflation and interest rates. I really can't say too many times that the fact, for the past 4 months in a row, inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range. In April, it was 2.7%, down from 2.9 in March. This is really a big deal, and that is what made it possible for the Bank of Canada in June to lower interest rates and begin that downward cycle. That has a direct impact on affordability, particularly for people with mortgages, but it also has a direct impact on home building. And when you take interest rates moving down with our decision in the fall to lift the GST on purpose-built rental, that is why you are seeing these really good figures that we're seeing on new housing starts.
Minister Freeland, my name is Gurpreet. I'm from Spice area. Coming back to Hardeep Singh Major, Canada has sanctioned number of Russians for the death of Alexei Navalny. I don't know what is stopping you from sanctioning India that killed a Canadian citizen on the Canadian soil.
Again, I'll say something, and then maybe if Parm or Randeep want to say something. I really do want to start by saying how seriously we take this. It was a very important and solemn moment in Parliament that we all rose and stood in silence and recognized the first anniversary of this murder. And I want, to say here in a community affected by it, we see you. We see that this has happened here, and it is entirely unacceptable. Second thing I want to say.
Companies that are in Richmond, including that, we even have investment put into a company called Ideon, which uses telescopic, don't ask me how it works, but they can look down 1 mile below the Earth's surface to see what minerals are there. So huge investments in so many different ways. Infrastructure in Richmond. We also got $40 million for the Housing Accelerator Fund, another $9 million for the Rapid Housing Initiative, and those projects are breaking ground and going on right now. Plus, my favorite, we even got some money for a new soccer pitch at the Olympic Oval. So when the premiers and other members from other levels of government sort of say that they're being left behind, I think it's a little bit disingenuous. Maybe remind them next time.
We're about 6 minutes over time, so we'll just unfortunately have just one more question, if that's okay.
Hi, Minister Freeland. Ish Sharma from Darpan Magazine. Now, a recent spy watchdog report shows a number of MPs have knowingly provided help to foreign governments. And the report suggests that some parliamentarians are semi-witting or witting participants in the efforts of foreign states to meddle in Canadian politics. You were asked for names of MPs implicated in this report, but you're withholding that information right until the election. So just wondering, don't you feel that Canadians deserve to know and that there needs to be some transparency around this?
Thank you for the question. I think you're referring to the NSI COP report. I do think Canadians deserve to know that there is no tolerance for foreign interference, and they deserve to know that all of us as MPs and our government take this very seriously. Intelligence is very delicate, and national security rules apply, very strict ones to disclosure intelligence. But people do need to know, and that's why our government has supported expanding the mandate of Justice Hogue to include a review of this information. That's the right way to do it. She is a very respected judge, and that is a forum that will permit the sort of proper assessment of the underlying intelligence information. I don't know if you guys want to say
I
anything.
just want to add, there's only one party leader who has refused to take top secret clearance. That's Pierre Poilievre. He won't review it. Last time when the India question on Hardeep signature came up, he refused. He's the only leader that wouldn't look at the evidence then. He's again, when it's brought up now, every leader has had the opportunity. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the bloc, Elizabeth May, everyone's had it. He's been offered the exact same. So the question you should be asking is actually him next time. Is he actually fearful that he doesn't qualify for top security clearance, or he just doesn't want to know the truth because it probably affects his party members more than anyone else? These are questions I think the media needs to ask him because he's the only one who hasn't. As to top secret clearance, I think that's where the law enforcement agencies, RCMP and others, need to do their work to make sure we don't malign anybody unlawfully or unreasonably. So if there's truth to those allegations, they should be, to the full extent of the law, brought forward. And I think that's where Justice Hogue will also look at that. And if there's weaknesses in in our legal system to unveil their names, she should come out with those recommendations. She was independent. She was approved by all the parties when we agreed on her. And I think when it comes out, that was the appropriate time and measure.
That concludes today's press conference. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you'll let us come back.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Bains, ਅੱਜ Chrystia Freeland, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister had a very good press conference. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ. ਥੋੜਾ ਕੀ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ?
ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਅੱਜ ਬਹੁਤ ਆਏ ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੰਭੀਰ ਮਸਲੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਏ ਅੱਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਨੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੀ ਪਲਾਨ ਕੀ ਆ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਪਲਾਨ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਾਈਨਲ ਪੀਸ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਸ ਬਜਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਫੇਅਰਨੈਸ ਅਗਲੀ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਫੇਅਰਨੈਸ ਆਊਗੀ ਰਾਈਟ ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਜਟਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਕੰਸੈਕਿਊਟਿਵਲੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਿਲਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਬਜਟ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਤੋਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਣਾ ਆ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਸੋ ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਬਜਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਵਰਟੀ ਚੋਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕੱਢਣਾ $10 ਡੇ ਚਾਲ ਕੇ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੂਮਨ ਸੀ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੌਬ they got back into the job workforce ਹੈ ਨਾ ਹੋਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਫੈਮਲੀਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਲੋਕੀ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਡਬਲ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਡਬਲ ਇਨਕਮ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੋਕ ਪਾਵਰਟੀ ਚੋਂ ਨਿਕਲੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਲਾਰਜੈਸਟ ਲੇਬਰ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਇਨ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਹੋਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਸੀ ਜਾਂ World War II ਦੇ ਬੇਬੀ ਬੂਮਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਵਰਕਫੋਰਸ ਚੋਂ ਨਿਕਲਣਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਰਿਪਲੇਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਐਕਨੋਮਿਕ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਲਿਆਂਦੀ ਐਕਨੋਮਿਕ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਜੌਬਸ ਮੀਟ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਐਂਡ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੁਣ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਸਟੈਪ ਇਹ ਆ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਅਗਲੀ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਲਿਆਉਣਾ
ਸੋ ਇਹ ਪਰਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੇਨ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੈਗੀ ਵੀ ਇੰਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਦਿਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਇੰਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਲਈ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਐਂਡ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਐਂਡ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਟੀਮ ਨੇ ਇੰਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤੇ ਵਾਈ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਨੈਗੇਟਿਵਿਟੀ and why Liberal Party is trailing in the polls? I don't understand.
No, I think it's ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਇਹ look I think message ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ I would look at it ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਇਹ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਕੰਪਲੈਕਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੈਲਪ ਹੋਈ ਵਾ 9 million in say dental ਜਾਂ 19 in pharmacare ਜਾਂ ਵਰਕਫੋਰਸ ਆਪਣੀ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ 20 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਲੋਕ ਜੌਬ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਬੱਚਾ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਆ ਸਕਿੱਲ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਇਨਵੈਸਟਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਉਹ ਰਾਈਟ ਅਵੇ ਦੇ ਵਿਲ ਗੈਟ ਇਨਟੂ ਅ ਵਰਕ ਫੋਰਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਡੇ ਜੌਬ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਰੈਡੀ ਸੋ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ
ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਮਤਲਬ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਇਨ ਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਬਿਫੋਰ ਇਜ਼ ਇਟ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਨਾਟ ਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਟਿੰਗ ਟੂ ਦ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਲੀ ਦੈਟ ਯੂ ਨੋ
No, it could be very well that ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸਤੇਮਾਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ automatically they're starting to work and they're doing things but ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਆ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਲੋਸਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਰਾਈਟ ਜੇ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਸ ਲੈਟਸ ਸੇ ਮੰਨ ਲਓ ਆਪਾਂ 4 ਹੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਉਹ 4 ਹੀ ਦੱਸੀ ਜਾਈਏ 4 ਆਹ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆਹ ਹੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਦੈਨ ਪੀਪਲ ਵਿਲ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ there's so much going on ਕਾਫੀ ਕੰਪਲੈਕਸ ਦੇਖੋ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੇਜ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਯੂ ਹੈਵ ਟੂ ਲੁੱਕ ਐਟ all of the different things that happen ਹੁਣ you know media ਵੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ we rely on media also to share but you know it's all about the news of the day what's fresh right and then ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਆ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ we are in a very difficult time in this world right we have Russia attack on Ukraine you have Israel and Palestine fighting and Iran attacking and we are in a very volatile time and we need to understand it's a cold war right now ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਈ ਕੰਟਰੀਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀ emerge ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ emerging powers they say they are now powers and they're looking to devalue our currency here ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਰੰਸੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਉਹਦੀ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਘਟਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੇਅਰਿੰਗ 'ਤੇ ਲਿਆਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਗਲੋਬਲੀ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਮਹਿੰਗਾਈ 'ਤੇ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਮਹਿੰਗਾਈ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੋਕਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਅਸਰ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਜਗਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਵੈਰੀ ਬਿਗ ਜੌਬ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਰੇਟ ਰਿਡਿਊਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਆ ਇਨ G7 ਸੋ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਵੈਰੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਥਿੰਗ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਵੇਰੀਏਬਲ ਰੇਟ 'ਤੇ ਹੋਲਡ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਾਈਟ ਅਵੇ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਅਸਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੋ ਇਟਸ ਗੁੱਡ ਬਟ ਦੈਟਸ ਜਸਟ ਅ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਵੀਰ ਸੀਇੰਗ ਇਹ ਮੈਨੇਜ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡੈਫਿਸਿਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 40 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੇ ਨੇੜੇ ਤੇੜੇ ਰੱਖਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ we are still in good standing and we paid more of the debt down than ever before so we're working on all those things.
So Parm, we will sit down and have a long conversation about all the issues and programs of the government. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you sir.
Thank you very much. ਮਿਸਟਰ ਸਰਾਏ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਣੇ ਡਿਪਟੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਤੇ ਫਾਈਨੈਂਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਟਾ ਫਰੀਲੈਂਡ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਿੰਗ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਮੋਸਟ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੜੇ ਕਲੀਅਰਲੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਇਸ 'ਤੇ ਟੇਕ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਬਾਰੇ
ਦੇਖੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੁੱਡ ਕੰਟਰੀ 'ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਡੈਪਟੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਐਂਡ ਫਾਈਨੈਂਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਕੋ ਆਪ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਆਪ ਆ ਕੇ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਾਂਝੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨੀ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਰਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਸ਼ਨ 'ਤੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਲੈਣੇ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਹਿਮ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਕਈ ਮਿਸਕਨਸੈਪਸ਼ਨਸ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਉਹ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਕਿ ਹਰ ਵਾਰੀ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਚਾਹੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਡੀਵਿਜੂਅਲੀ ਜਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਲੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਆ ਕੇ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਤੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਨ ਮੋਰੇ
ਮਿਸਟਰ ਸਰਾਏ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਹੁਣ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਬਾਕੀ ਤਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਕਾਫੀ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਹੋਇਆ ਆ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਲਾਸਟ ਮੇਰਾ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੀ ਇੰਨੇ ਬਾਵਜੂਦ ਇੰਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਇੰਨੀ ਸਪੈਂਡਿੰਗ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਮੈਸੇਜਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੋਲਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਟ੍ਰੇਲਿੰਗ ਲਾਈਕ 20 ਪੁਆਇੰਟਸ ਹਿਊਜ ਟ੍ਰੇਲਿੰਗ ਉਹ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਬੈਠੀਆਂ ਦੂਜੀਆਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਕੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਹੈ ਇਜ਼ ਏ message not going out to the public about all the programs?
A good question ਹੈ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਲਰਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕੀਤੇ ਔਰ ਇਕੋਨਮੀ ਨੂੰ ਬੜਾ ਐਕਸਪੈਂਡ ਕੀਤਾ ਇਕੋਨਮੀ 1.5 ਟ੍ਰਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਸੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਏ ਪਾਵਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2.3 ਟ੍ਰਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਇਕੋਨਮੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਆ ਵਨ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਫਾਸਟੈਸਟ ਗਰੋਥ ਇਨ ਦਾ G7 ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਸਲੇ ਹੋਰ G7 ਕੰਟਰੀਆਂ ਕੋਲ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਪਾਪੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਗਰੋਥ ਬੇਬੀ ਬੂਮਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਪਲੇਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪਾਵਰ ਹਾਊਸ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗਾ ਡੈਂਟਲ ਕੇਅਰ ਫਾਰਮਾ ਕੇਅਰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੜਾ ਲੋੜ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਈਵਨ ਮੋਰ ਲੋੜ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਰੀਅਲੀ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਪੋਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ अर्ਲੀ ਪੋਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਜਾਂ ਖਿਜੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪਾਰਟਿਸਿਪੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖੁਸ਼ ਆ ਉਹ ਚੁੱਪ ਚਪੀਤੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੋ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਰੀਅਲ ਪੋਲ ਮੇਰਾ 3 ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੁਣ ਤਜਰਬਾ ਆਪ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 5-7 ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਲਿਆ ਰੀਅਲੀ ਉਹ 4-5 ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਅਸਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੋਲ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਬਾਹਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਣਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਈ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਜਾਂ ਨਾਰਾਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਜ਼ਾਹਰ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਚੁੱਪ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੁਲੰਦ ਹੁੰਦੀ
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮੱਚ ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਥਰਸਡੇ ਜੂਨ 20 ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਡਿਪਟੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਐਂਡ ਫਾਈਨੈਂਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਟਾ ਫਰੀਲੈਂਡ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਅਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀ ਪਹੁੰਚਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਿੰਗ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਸ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੀਗੇ ਕੰਸੀਡਰਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਉਹ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਰ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਬਜਟ ਤੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੀ ਬਜਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਉਲੀਕਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਗੇਨਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਹਰਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਿੱਜਰ ਦੇ ਮਰਡਰ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਰ ਨਵੇਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕੀ ਉਲੀਕ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਫੋਰਡੇਬਿਲਟੀ ਹੈ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਸਹੀ ਹੋ ਸਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ ਇਨਫਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਥੱਲੇ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਪੋਜ਼ੀਟਿਵ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ ਸੋ CJ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਰਿਪੋਰਟਿੰਗ ਫਰਮ ਸਰੀ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ